Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America, Can We Talk? Today, we're going to talk about statues, American mob rule underway, how we got here, education, 1619 versus 1776, and whose job is it to save America? And of course, I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth.
Hello again, and welcome to America Can We Talk. I'm Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my first five today. Lots of us are watching what's happening in Washington and around the country. Statues of all sorts of famous Americans, and some even non-Americans, famous people around the country being toppled, being pulled over by protesters. It's a combination of Black Lives Matter, BLM, and Antifa, and just general rioters. Destruction, desecration of these statues, and there was an incident outside of the White House yesterday, and President Trump chose to take to the cameras this morning as he was leaving the White House. He did a quick interview, as he often does now, leaving the White House, kind of talking to the press in the driveway of the White House about where he's headed in Arizona. He's headed to talk there about the wall and to some young Americans, but he's also addressed in this morning presser what they did last night in response to vandals destroying statues in Lafayette Park right across from the White House. Here is Donald Trump.
So we're going to Arizona. We're celebrating. We have over 200 miles of wall built. It's been incredible. Our numbers on the border, as you know, are at just about a record-breaking low. People are not being able to cross the border. The wall has helped because we have more than 200. We have about 212 miles up of wall. So that's good. And we're going to be doing a number of other things. We're going to be making a speech to young people in Arizona. And we'll be meeting with some of the Arizona officials to talk about their border and how strong it's become. It's become very strong. Last night we stopped an attack on a great monument, the monument of Andrew Jackson in Lafayette Park. And I just want to thank law enforcement. They did a great job. We were working very closely with the White House Secret Service and some of our executives. It was really, they did a great job. They stopped it cold. Numerous people are in jail and going to jail today. People are already there, but we're looking at long-term sentences under the Act. We have a very specific Monuments Act, and we are looking at long-term jail sentences for these vandals and these hoodlums and these anarchists and agitators, and call them whatever you want. Some people don't like that language, but that's what they are. They're bad people. They don't love our country, and they're not taking down our monuments. I just want to make that clear.
God bless Donald Trump. That little press conference alone is a great example of why Americans got behind Donald Trump in 2016 and why they're more so behind him today. What we're watching in America, the alleged provocation of these riots around the country, the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis at the hands of a police officer, has nothing to do with what we're watching in this country. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the extent of the unbelievable pulling down of statues. First of all, just examples so crazy. To start with, for example, there was pulling down the statue of George Washington, of course, of Thomas Jefferson, but Ulysses S. Grant. Now, if you think, I know that name from history, Ulysses S. Grant was actually the leader, the person who led the Northern forces in the Civil War, who brought about the end of slavery, the end of the Civil War, the end of slavery. He was a hero. His statue pulled down because before the war started, the attackers, the mobsters, that he owned one slave. Whether he did or didn't, the man fought for the Union and to end slavery. Francis Scott Key, the person who wrote our national anthem. Junipero Serra, a Catholic priest who brought Catholicism north from Mexico into what we now call California. We're talking about statues being torn down. Obviously, you talk about Christopher Columbus. We're tearing down statues of America's history. And Even though these statues are precious, many irreplaceable, many have nothing to do with the current controversy in America or with past slavery, there is simply a mob taking over various portions of this country. Many Americans watching this and waiting for, where are the police? Where is someone in authority to denounce this, to condemn it, to stop them, to take charge? In fact, even though President Trump, in the clip we just heard, made reference to Lafayette Park, just a couple of days ago, other things happened in Lafayette Park, including another attack on that same church that was lit on fire by the protesters about a week ago. There was commentary by various people saying, why aren't we standing up? Why is President Trump letting this happen? And so you had people in Washington, D.C. asking the mayor, why aren't you sending your police over? Why aren't they protecting this? And the mayor and the mayor's office said, you know, it's actually not our job. It's not in our jurisdiction. It's federal land, it's federal property, and so you have to have the park police. Well, thank goodness for Donald Trump standing up. Just the beginning of the message from him this morning, we are going to fight back. We're going to stop this. But I want to get to the real crux of this, which isn't just the destruction of these precious, historic, often irreplaceable statues. It is the message to the people behind this destruction. You have to understand the people destroying these statues, the people painting all sorts of horrific things on statues of Christopher Columbus and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and all sorts of American historic figures, are not motivated by trying to help America, save America, enlighten America, lift America. These people are profoundly and deeply hateful of America. These are people who simply hate the very idea of America. These are Marxists who have been waiting in the weeds, waiting for provocation, waiting for the signal. Now's the time, go ahead and attack America. And one reason you can tell that is true is because nothing that they're doing involves a demand. It's not like saying, we're going to protest until we get this change, this change, this change. There are no demands, except the vague, we want justice, we want fairness, or something you can't respond to. These people are about the destruction of America. This is truly the beginning of a Marxist revolution in this country and around the world. And I'll tell you a little tip around the world before I come back to this story of what's happening in America. So in Germany, in the country of Germany, which has plenty of history itself where everyone is aware of, but in the country of Germany, they recently, in a small town, put up a new statue erected in a town in Germany to Lenin, Vladimir Lenin, the Russian who gave rise eventually to the Russian Revolution, to the slaughter of millions of Russian people, to the evil of communism. This is the guy who kicked that off in Russia. And the commentary, even more dangerous than the fact that who would make a statue to Lenin, although there is a statue to Lenin still standing in Washington state in America, somehow these people who are so upset about America and destroying our property are not bothering with a Lenin statue in Washington. I think it's in Olympia, Washington. But in Germany, the commentary around this Lenin statue, was to talk about the greatness of ideas, the great anti-capitalist, the great person who freed the people, the masses, from the evil of capitalism. People, this is a Marxist concept around this world. It is ongoing. So back to America, I want to commend President Trump, number one, saying, we're going to take charge, we're going to stop this. And I also want to say, in the course of what we're watching in this country, it is a real great signal for us to understand, why is it the police are afraid to act? Why do police, in most cases, in this toppling of monuments around this country by mobs, why do police stand there? And I want to set up for you what we're going to talk about the rest of the show, and that is this. The left in this country, the anti-American radical left, which has now overtaken the Democrat Party, but the socialist, Marxist, anti-American radical left has been working away at disintegrating, dissolving, eviscerating, tainting the love of America among the American people. The left has been working for decades in a variety of ways to eviscerate the concept in the American consciousness of the goodness of America, the extraordinary ideas of our founding, the promise of America, the opportunity in America for people of every race, ethnicity, national origin to come here and have a life of prosperity and freedom. The left has been working for decades to destroy America. And so what you're seeing now, the destruction of monuments, the notice is up at Chaz or CHOP, whatever you want to call it, in San Francisco, that has in Seattle, that has the signs, end capitalism, capitalism, inherently racist, police, inherently racist. You have the left has been working away at destroying love of America, belief in the American ideas, the valuing of America in all sorts of ways. It starts with our public education system. For decades, because we were asleep at the wheel in this country, we had leftists invading the curricula from kindergarten through 12th grade, in colleges, in grad schools around this country. So you had leftism denigrating the idea of America, introducing America as a country with a deeply horrible, horrible history, horrible identity, horrible place in the world. You had evisceration of the love of America. You're making its way through the school system. So now we have decades of people raised in that who are now surprised they don't love America. They've been taught to hate America since kindergarten. Of course they do, because we haven't been in charge of our school system. But the concept about the attack on these statues is not just targeted at the particular figure depicted in the statue. It's not really just hatred of George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or Christopher Columbus or Junipero Serra or all the other people whose statues are being destroyed. It's hatred of America. You have to start to get that idea. These people are not just trying to correct past wrongs. They are not just working to make sure we can resurrect a better America. We can make a better America with less racism. This is not their mission. Their mission is to attack the idea of America. So in addition to the fact the education system has brought about hatred of America, failure to respect America, failure to love America, we've also had the radical left. We talked about it yesterday on this show. If you didn't watch the show, you should go back and look at it. We had the Communist Party in America starting in 1920, identifying the idea that they couldn't sell communism to an American society that loved our freedom, loved our free markets, loved entrepreneurship, loved the opportunity freedom and capitalism give people. So the Communist Party back in the 1920s was saying in America, the only way to get America divided, to bring them on board with Marxism, is to introduce race, to accuse America of being a deeply racist country, to divide America by race. This is a tactic by leftists in this country, tactic by Marxists, tactic by communists and socialists, divide America, accuse America of being a deeply racist country. This was thought up in the 1920s. We mentioned yesterday on the show there was a brilliant book written by a guy named Manning Johnson, a black American who joined the Communist Party in the 1930s and 40s, loved the idea of communism, thought he was joining the Communist Party to stand up for black Americans and bring justice to black Americans. And after remaining in the Communist Party for wherever it was, 20 years or so, he finally realized the Communist Party was using him, using race, using false accusations of racism to undermine the existence of America and to make America feel divided, suspicious, and hateful of each other. So this gentleman's name was Manning Johnson. He left the Communist Party, wrote the book, Color, Communism, and Common Sense, and tried to tell America the rest of his life, tried to tell America, understand, communism will destroy America. It will destroy everything good, destroy the very fabric of this country. He tried to bring that out at his time and to point out the leftists in his time, the communists, were using race to divide America, to destroy America. It's the same thing happening today. You have to understand this. The rioters, the protesters, the looters, the people who are committing vandalism, they do not care one iota about race relations in this country. They do not care at all about uplifting the plight of low-income black Americans. They do not care about that. They care about destroying America. They're using race as an issue, as a divider of our people. I want to share a couple other images I sent to Matt the Wonderful. One is just, I don't have the numbers Matt I sent, but one has a picture of a statue that's been pulled down. It says, rioters defaced and toppled the George Washington. Here you go. Rioters defaced and toppled the George Washington statue in Portland, Oregon. This is what I was referring to a moment ago. Meanwhile, the statue of murderous tyrant Vladimir Lenin still up in Seattle, Washington. Somehow it doesn't matter to them. A person who brought about the murder of millions of people in this world, he's fine. No problem with him. Junipero Serra, Francis Scott Key, George Washington, they got to go. The rioters are, and I wouldn't call them, they are rioters, they are anarchists, whatever word you want to use. These are not people with a mission to solve any problems in America. They're not trying to solve problems. They are trying to create division. They are trying to bring the end of the destruction of America. So we're around to this. I know it's a very long first five, but I want to get the point. We're at a very, very crucial point in America. We're at a turning point. We are at a vital time in America. The left is attempting to instill mob rule. Whether it's Washington, San Francisco, San Diego, all over this country, it's a mob mentality. They are not reasoning. They're not making demands. They are not laying out what we want, but because what they want is the destruction of the very concept of America, a country rooted in liberty. That is their mission. That is their mission, to simply destroy America. And I wanted to share a couple of things in this first five. In fact, a big point in this first five I want to get to. Beside the fact, I should point out, so the mob rule is happening. So either we have people like the police standing back because they don't want to be, they're a little bit afraid to get involved in the destruction of statues. They're afraid to have the next confrontation between an officer and a citizen where the police can later be accused of brutality or unfairness. We have the left has bullied the police into fear of even handling a riot. The police are afraid to make arrests, afraid to be the next police officer accused. So the bullying of the left has resulted in police afraid to do their jobs, American citizens afraid to speak up, and we have government officials of all kinds. I Googled, city vote to remove statues or something like that. I mean, I could list city after city after city. The bullying mob of the left has gotten all sorts of leaders in cities around this country to agree to voluntarily take down statues so that the mob doesn't come and take them down anyway. So we have surrender to the mob demands to remove any reference to anything from the Confederacy. And people, by the way, I'm not a Southerner. I grew up in New York. I'm not a big defender of the Confederacy or these statues. I'm getting at the idea the statue removal is not being made, the demands to remove statues are not being made because people want to have a more peaceful and loving country. That has nothing to do with the demands by these people. It's everything to do with the chipping away at the concept of America. So whether you have the mob taking down statues or you have city and county and state officials surrendering because the mob is bullying them, and if you won't, the mob saying to city officials, if you won't take down the following statues that we demand, we're going to come after you next. You're going to be the next racist with headlines all over the country. You're going to be the next one we attack. So the mob rule is starting to take hold in this country. Whether we permit statues to be just destroyed by protesters, or we have city and county officials throwing up their hands saying, sure, whatever you tell us, to do what we want. So you have people surrendering all sorts of statues. But the last piece I want to hit today, that's just in this first five, which is way longer than five, I want to make this point about another demand happening. And if you doubt what I'm saying, if you think there's legitimacy at all to the demands to take down these statues because we're just trying to get rid of symbols of the Confederacy, symbols of the era of slavery, which obviously in America, since the end of the Civil War, school students have learned since that time that America has a history of slavery, that we had slavery in the South, that we fought a civil war, that slavery ended, that we have made many, many strides forward since the time of ending slavery. And then we had the civil rights movements. It's not like we haven't taught our students our people in this country that slavery was wrong. We have taught that, and we still teach it. But the tearing down of statues is not about punishing the people. It's not about punishing the people in the statues, and it's not being done because America otherwise was holding up slavery as a great thing. America has taught its students since the end of the Civil War in 1865 that slavery was wrong. We fought a war to end it. We ended it, and we stand by and we abhor slavery. We've taught this for over 100 years. Over 150 years we've taught this. And yet you have people determined to tear down these statues. What they're trying to do is erase all symbols of American history, the American identity, America's past. This is what totalitarian Marxist types people do around the world. It's the same thing that the Taliban did around the world when they had their chance. The Taliban in Afghanistan tore down statues of anything that wasn't honored in their faith of Islam. The idea of tearing down statues is a centuries, millennia-old tactic to attack the identity and the meaning of a culture. It is not about trying to erase the horrible history of our Confederacy of slavery. It was a horrible history. We teach it, we tell it, but the reason these people are doing this today is not because they're really, really motivated by the idea that they're going to stand up and stand against slavery. It's been long over. It is to destroy the identity of America, the history of America, the very culture and fabric of our country. It is an evil attack on America. And one last thing if you doubt this, I want to tell you one last thing. So one of the main leaders of Black Lives Matter movement, a guy named Shaun King, big tweeter, kind of a leader out there. His next demand is that all statues, stained glass windows, or pictures of Christ Jesus, the founder of the Christian faith. All of those statues, pictures, stained glass windows that depict Jesus Christ as a Caucasian, as having light skin, of being of any skin color except Arab, must be torn down and destroyed. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this is not like some, kind of outlier guy. This is a main figure in the Black Lives Matter movement, now talking about destroying the religious symbolism of the most prominent religion in America, Christianity, saying that you can't have stained glass windows, statues, pictures, paintings of Christ if Christ Jesus is portrayed as a white person. That this is justified. His language justified. Protesters, says he, rioters are justified in destroying the symbols of the church because Christ Jesus is a symbol of repression if he was painted or depicted in any way as a white person, because that's not what he was. This is Shaun King talking about Jesus Christ as a white supremacist. It is a tool of white supremacism to portray Jesus as a white person. And I'm going to wrap up this very lengthy first five by saying this. You have to understand that this Black Lives Matter movement, the organized Marxist, anti-American, destroy America movement, is entirely different from the reality and the fact that, of course, individuals matter. Individual Black lives matter. Individual lives of every skin color matter. Individual lives of everyone matter. You have to be able to make the distinction, to make the point, to understand BLM, Antifa, Marxist, communist, socialist, left, they're all trying to destroy America. It's okay for everyone in America to say, we reject that. You can't do that here. We reject what you stand for. We reject everything you stand for. And we, of course, agree that we always have to be working toward a more perfect union. We always have to investigate instances of police brutality. We always have to try to improve race relations in our country. We always have to try to work toward a better America. We can do that, but never give in to what the left is trying to do, because there won't be an America left if we don't stop them. There won't be an America left. So you have Sean King saying, let's just tear down, let's just go ahead and tear down statues. They're going to start attacking churches now. Would that be enough to wake some Americans up? Because I fear, I'll tell you folks, and wrapping up this very lengthy first five, I fear is that there are some people in our country a little bit slow on the uptake, realizing what is actually happening. There are too many people, elected officials, people who are cowering because a Twitter mob might come and get them. The Twitter mob, the radical left Democrat media mob is going to glom onto them next, going to label them a racist, going to label their business a racist, try to drive them out of business, intimidate them, and it's easier for too many people to give in to the mob. It's easier for people to give in to the mob, say, okay, fine, don't attack me, tell me what I have to do. Okay, I have to take down all the paintings in our church. Okay, I have to get rid of our stained glass windows. I mean, at what point are people going to recognize this leftism that we are seeing argued by Black Lives Matter movement is not about fixing race relations, is not about anything other than destroying the very identity, the whole culture and identity of America. So God bless President Trump for speaking up this morning, saying they arrested people in Lafayette Park. He has told people around the country this has to stop, this destruction has to stop. And I'll tell you one more thing, folks. You can get police to arrest people, to bring charges against them because they spray painted a George Washington statue or they tumbled over a Christopher Columbus statue. But even if you arrest those people and charge them, and prosecute and convict and send them to jail, you haven't even really begun to solve the problem of fixing all the hatred for America that has been taught by the left to our country for decades now. We have a long row ahead of us trying to deal with that. And that, my friends, is today's very lengthy first five. I want to turn and talk, though, about how we got here in our education system. And this how we got here really matters because it impacts how we fix the problem. It impacts how we get past this problem if we are still mired in the people who have been raised in the generations that have been taught to hate America. And I mentioned earlier, I want to kind of run through the list again of the ways in which we got here in America. We've had leftists defining America as an evil place in academia for decades. We've had the radical left redefining in modern times, redefining America as a horrible, evil, racist place. We've had the development of the concept of institutional racism, systemic racism. So even if someone were to answer and say, well, I'm not a racist, I try to treat everyone equally, I love my neighbors myself, the answer of the left, who is using race to destroy America, using race to divide America, the answer is, okay, well, maybe you're not. Okay, maybe you're not. But there's systemic racism, institutional racism. That's what's really happening. And so you have people unable to respond to that, and they think, well, maybe I don't understand. Maybe things are much worse than I thought. Maybe I'm really wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. So you have the left using tactics of various kinds, accusing America of systemic racism, institutional racism. The whole white privilege movement started as another, what the white privilege movement really was, is just another way for leftists who are trying to use race to destroy America, to bring about the Marxist utopia they have in mind, but they use race to get there. So the all of a sudden, the just explosion of discussion of white privilege, and now every college campus in America, you have to check your privilege at the door. You have to apologize for your white privilege. You have to go down your knees and say how sorry you are that you were born with a certain skin color. This is what the left has done, is conditioning America, conditioning Americans to think of America as racist, having a horrible identity, the very national identity, having systemic institutional racism pervasively infecting this country, accusing the police of racism all the time in excess. And so at the end of the day, America is frozen in place as the mob continues to attack America. So I want to go to what another way people get attacked is if they dare to ever speak up against anything that the left is saying and doing. And for this point, I sent Matt the Wonderful this is another little, is by this brilliant meme maker isn't the right word, he's an artist, but his last name is Bronco, and he has a video up, a little meme he did of what happens to you if you dare to challenge the left. So if we have that, okay, see this guy? The guy walking away on the left has been tarred and feathered. You see the can of tar and the can of feathers. The leftist academia is saying, anybody else wish to exercise their right to disagree with the left-wing mob? People, that is where we are. People are afraid to speak. People are afraid to say, hey, you know what? I don't really agree that America has systemic racism. I don't really agree that white privilege is this massive problem that you say it is. I don't really agree that America is a horribly racist country. You can't even get the words out of your mouth in academia in America today. You can't even say it. You will be, as Bronco is trying to show there, tarred and feathered. In addition to that, this segment about how we got here, you may remember we talked about the New York Times began a project, and this what they call it the 1619 Project. And if you missed this, I'll tell you very quickly that the New York Times is among the radical leftist, Marxist, anti-American, hate America crowd, trying very hard to not just attack Donald Trump. I mean, obviously New York Times hates Donald Trump, but it's not just to attack Donald Trump. It is to attack the very foundational ideas of America, the ideas that were rooted in the Declaration of Independence, that we all have rights from our Creator because we were born, that America is a place where we respect every individual. We are all equal, created by God equally. We all have rights simply because we were born, to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that this country is rooted in the idea of freedom of the individual, that we created a constitution, a whole structure to protect that right, to protect the people, that we the people govern. The constitutional structure is supposed to protect the idea of the individual. That's what America is. Those ideas of what America is, what we used to teach our young people for decades, for centuries, until the left got a hold of the education system, those ideas are antithetical to the anti-American Marxist socialist left of this country. And the anti-American Marxist socialist left has overtaken the Democrat Party. So when you see people on the left of the New York Times attacking something Donald Trump does, they really genuinely don't like him. But what they hate more is that he is restoring the idea of America. He is validating for millions of Americans, we're right to love America. We're right to love this country. We're not saying it's perfect. We have bad things happen. We try to fix them. We try to make a more perfect union. We try to bring justice. But America is a good country rooted in good ideas. Marxist ideas are utterly antithetical to everything that America stands for. Everything America's founding is antithetical to Marxism. And the left in this country, which includes the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, ABC, NBC, CBS, all the major networks, they are all wrapped up in these ideas that the left is trying to bring to this country. So on to the New York Times, they started a project called the 1619 Project. The gist of it is, and they're having people write for the project, scholars, academics writing for this project, all of it targeted at the idea that we Americans should not think of our country as founded on the ideas that are embraced in the Declaration of Independence from 1776. All the ideas I was just talking about, the beauty of the Declaration of Independence. No. That's not America's founding, says the New York Times. America's founding, says the New York Times, goes back to 1619. They're talking about the first slave trade ships coming over, bringing African slaves to America. The entire point of the 1619 Project is not merely to bring more out into the open, to understand more deeply the American, the history before 1776 of the land we now call America. It's not to produce information. It's not to share information. It is to convince Americans to hate America. It is to describe America as not the noble country founded on the great ideas of the Declaration, but instead to get people thinking that all this country really is a country because of the start of the slave trade, that we were a country that our very identity is rooted in hatred and slavery and racism and bigotry, and that those ideas are what really propelled everything about America. The 1619 Project, among other things, is how the left gets around to the idiocy of trying to say that capitalism and free markets are inherently racist. There is not a kernel of truth in that idiocy, but when you try to turn people's attention from the Declaration back to the 1619 slave trade, and you get people down that path of seeing America, then yeah, they think, well, gee, that's pretty bad. You know, we did have slavery, and maybe that really is who we are. So everything about America, all the great ideas of the Declaration, the beauty of the Constitution, everything about our history is all to be seen when you are a leftist at the New York Times through the lens or the prism of slavery. So the 1619 Project is the I Hate America Project. You remember yesterday, or I think it was yesterday, yes, I talked about the film I was very honored to get to go see last Friday. My husband and I went to go see, called Uncle Tom. It was made by 12 or 15 brilliant black conservative leaders in this country talking about their love of America, their love of the founding ideas of America, the goodness of freedom and the entire structure of America. Black conservatives, every one of them brave men and women, daring to speak up against the leftist mob who spend all their time trying to convince black America your entire role is to be a victim, and don't worry, we the Marxists are going to come in and rescue you from this suffering you're experiencing under this horrible country, America. So that group, the Uncle Tom movie characters, or it's a film, actually I shouldn't call it a movie, a film with all those characters, they also started in response to the 1619 Project, the I Hate America 1619 Project. The Uncle Tom and more people who are black conservatives started the 1776 Project, trying to sway America to say, don't buy into the idea that just because the slave trade happened and it was evil and it was wrong, that somehow means the ideas of 1776 are to be diminished, are wrong, are somehow, tainted because of that history. So they're bravely speaking up, trying to counter the 1619 Project. But when I'm getting back to the point of today and how we could possibly be in the place in this country where you have rioters, looters, anarchists destroying our country, how we could get there? So the 1619 Project, New York Times, getting in, experts. And by the way, some of the experts who were asked to write things, and they wrote historically accurate things, sent them to the New York Times, and then the New York Times changed them around, distorted them to the point that the academics said, wait a minute, that's not what I said. I didn't say that. You can't say that. That's not true about America. Please absorb this fact. The point of the project that the left is doing in the 1619 Project is to make Americans hate America, to just instill the idea America is a deeply racist country and everyone ought to hate it. And so the Uncle Tom filmmakers came up with their 1776 Project. Others are trying to refute it. But you see where the power lies in this country, because the 1619 Project has now been absorbed in numerous public school curricula. So your precious little children and grandchildren going off to school are going to hear this anti-American leftist drivel, and that is what they're going to think America is, because the left is getting this into the public schools. In addition, you talk about how did we get here? How could we be at this place where so many Americans hate America? I'll tell you another good example. It's just one example of many, but you talk about, we talk about social media, pop culture, Hollywood, journalism, just pervading America's culture. The left has taken charge of trying to instill their anti-American Marxist ideas throughout this country. That's what they do all day long while we're asleep at the wheel. So Teen Vogue, I've mentioned them before. I never saw the magazine, but Teen Vogue, I guess, is really kind of cool thing. I'm going to imagine, it's a magazine, I'm going to imagine some people innocently think, oh, that'd be kind of cute gift for our daughter, our granddaughter. She gets in her teenage years, it's got probably fashion tips and whatever. So Teen Vogue is totally Marxist. They recently ran a lengthy article about Karl Marx, from which the name Marxist came. Karl Marx, they wrote a really cute, friendly article, never mentioned the evils of communism, never mentioned the evils of Marxism, never mentioned the millions and millions and millions of people who died because of his ideas, but instead they had an article called Everything You Should Know About Karl Marx. The anti-capitalist scholars' ideas are often memed. And so this magazine, which too many Americans probably innocently buy for their friends, children, grandchildren for Christmas gift or birthday gift, this is selling Marxism to our students. I could go over more and more examples, but I got to hit one more story today. But whether you look at the pop culture, academia, what you hear from mainstream media, you're hearing Marxist ideas insidiously, relentlessly attacking the idea of America, undermining our faith in America, undermining our belief in the goodness of America and the ideas that formed America. That's what the left is doing all day long. That is their mission all day long. And I'll tell you folks, there's in fact, I'll tell you one little quick thing on this. So there was a piece written in New York Post maybe that was saying, hey, we should call these riots around this country, this property destruction, anarchy, arson, we should call it the 1619 Project. And the author was trying to make the connection between everything the 1619 Project says about America and the fact that all these anarchists and Marxists hate America and are destroying our country before our eyes. So this guy's trying to say, look, 1619 ideas are taking hold. That's why these people are destroying America. And one of the 1619 writers, one of the New York Times supporters, actually did a screen grab of that article that was blaming the 1619 Project for the violence in our country. And that person, named Ida Bay Wells, took a screen grab, the picture of the article that said, let's call them the 1619 riots. And she said, it would be an honor. Thank you. She's saying that, yeah, what we did in the 1619 Project, developing hate for America, and now we have the riots attacking America, sure, we'll take credit. Yay for us. And there are other examples. I have to wait for another day, I guess. But throughout our country, you can pick universities, institutions of all kinds in which the very goodness of America, the right ideas of America, of its founding, are being undermined, mocked, and ridiculed. And the introduction of Marxist government-controlled society, the end of capitalism, the growth of the government-controlled country and economy and your entire life and everything you do, all of that control being pushed by the Marxists is being sold subtly day after day after day after day. And I was going to tell you a story in the beginning. I forgot to tell you this story. Then I'm going to get to my last point. But on the subject of the destruction of these statues, the park police in Washington D.C., the Washington D.C. police that patrol and take care of the federal property in Washington, have pretty much until last night, apparently, when you heard Trump talking about this morning, that last night we finally went in and arrested these people. But they've been letting all this destruction happen. And I was going to get a contrast about that. So I went to law school in Washington, and in law school, where I went to Georgetown, which the law school is on Capitol Hill. It's not across town in the very fancy Georgetown area. The law school is on Capitol Hill. I lived in Southeast Washington, and I used to walk to law school. So it was the coolest thing ever to go to law school in Washington, D.C., I thought. So I walked from where I was living. I went right in front of the Supreme Court. Coolest thing ever, on the way to law school, walk by the Supreme Court, cut through the Capitol grounds to get over to Georgetown Law School. So one day in the spring, it was beautiful, it was cherry blossom season, it was a lovely day. I was walking to classes at Georgetown, walking across the Capitol grounds, and I don't usually do these kind of things, but I was walking right under a really pretty tree, a cherry tree, and so I jumped up and pulled one little blossom off just to kind of look at it and enjoy having it. And I'm telling you, within seconds, a U.S. Park Police guy came running over. Excuse me. You may not touch those trees. You may not pick those. I said, okay, fine. I'm telling you, these people know their job. They used to know their job is to protect the national property. That's what used to happen, the attitude that used to be in Washington. So a little law student picks one flower and I got the park police in my face. I mean, I'm not saying they arrested me, but they were quick to say you can't do that. And now we're watching mobs tearing down statues in Washington. And we all sit back, including up until last night, the park police, a little bit afraid to stand up to the mob. People, we have to stand up to the mob. We all have to stand up to the mob. And so I want to wrap up the show by talking about whose job is it to save America. This is my last little segment. Whose job is it to save America? I'm going to save, I had a clip ready for today by Brandon Tatum, but I don't have time to play it. So I just want to tell you where I want to get to with this idea of whose job it is to save America. Even if in November of 2020, President Trump wins, which I think he will, but even if he wins, and even if the House turns over and has Republican majority, even if the Senate retains their Republican majority, even if all that happens, we have Republican control of Washington, the war we are in with the Marxists, the anti-American left in this country will not even be close to over. It's not going to be that if we win all that, you're going to see the leaders of the Democrat Party go, oh, okay, I guess America still loves freedom. I guess America still wants to be free market. I guess America doesn't really want to have these Marxist ideas that have invaded the Democrat Party become part of government. That's not going to happen. These people, these Marxists, they've been waiting for decades. They have been planning. This is the intellectual continuum, the organizational continuum. It goes from the 1920s when the communists came here, and even before that when the communist ideas and Marxist and socialist ideas were being fomented over in Europe and in Russia. These ideas, it's just a long continuum. These people who've embraced these ideas in this country, the Democrat Socialists of America, the Marxists, the Antifa, all these people, they are not thinking, we'll make a one big push now, but if we can't get America to surrender, okay, fine, we'll give in and let America be free. This is a long-term effort that intellectuals on the left in this country, in academia, in culture, in the leadership of all of these leftist organizations, they have been dreaming about this destruction of America for decades. The mere fact that Donald Trump wins again, and even if the Republicans take over, none of this will change. We are going to be entering, we are in the battle now, and whose job it is to fix America, to save America, it's everyone's job. It's everyone's job. Donald Trump can't do it alone. He can stand there and say, we're going to arrest people for destroying statues. Great, fine. He can't as a one-man person, or even the organized Republican Party, cannot by itself stand up and reverse the decades of anti-Americanism that has been woven in to the fabric of our culture in America. It is going to take everyone, individuals of every background, every race, creed, national origin, and age, and geography, wherever you live in this country, to get on board with the idea that we must stand up for our country. It means things like this. If in your city, if you have the city government voting to take down statues, which we have where I live, which is happening around the country, you have to be the one speaking up and saying, no, we have a noble American history, not perfect. And yes, Confederacy was wrong and slavery was wrong, but America's right. And we don't destroy our legacy. We don't destroy our history. As Alan West said in this show a few weeks ago, last week, whenever it was, just said, history is not there for you to like or dislike. It's there for you to learn from. This is what history is. You individually, you have to speak up to your city council person, to your elected officials. You have to speak up in your school districts. When you hear these crazy programs happening in schools all around this country, teaching children that America is a deeply, pervasively racist place, and that white privilege is an evil force in this country that has been planted in this country and is unfair to everyone and must be rooted out. When you have people you have leftists in this country pushing at every level, at every lever possible. Leftists are bullying companies and businesses. It's easier for them to pull advertising from Tucker Carlson because the leftist mob is coming after them than to say, no, actually, we're going to advertise where we want, and if you don't like our product, don't buy our product. If you don't like Tucker Carlson, don't listen to Tucker Carlson. But the left operates as a mob. You got to get this point. The left operates as a mob, and the only way to fight a mob is with all hands on deck, all patriots on deck, pushing back every day in the way that you can. It means punishing the people, the companies that pulled back their advertising from Tucker Carlson. It means getting involved in your local school district, understanding what's happening in your school board. If they're bringing crazy leftist programs, push against them, fight against them, or pull your kids out. It means standing up to Congress. Because I tell you something else, your elected officials in Washington, your congressmen, your senators, they're up in Washington. The bullying leftist mob in this country pummels every member of Congress and House and Senate every day. Every member of Congress is pummeled and bullied by the radical left in this country every day. And if you're a congressperson and, even when you're on the right side of the aisle, you're a Republican, but all you hear is the leftist bullying, which they do 24/7, threaten, bully, intimidate members of Congress, and those members hear nothing from the silent majority, from the people who love America, who want America to remain a free country, who do not want to have reparations, who do not want to give in to the leftist bullying of this country. If those members of Congress and the Senate never hear from you, you can imagine they might start to wonder, well, where is America on this? I mean, I didn't think everything was so bad, but all I hear is the leftist bullying. And if they don't hear from you, they can start to wonder. I'm telling you, people, the battle to save America, it is not going to be solved by the 2020 elections, and it can't be solved by one person or even a small cabal. It's an everyday battle. It is standing up in your daily life, in your private life. When people spout off to you and say, well, police are racist. Say, well, actually, no. Atlanta had 58% of the Atlanta Police Department is black. Unless you're accusing black police officers of being racist. Or, to stand up when you hear police are racist, America's racist, this is a horrible country, America has an evil history. All these things, these become norms the left has pushed in our country for so long that they seem like norms. They seem like what everyone's supposed to agree to and think. And so the idea that the battle can be won simply by a few politicians is not realistic. The battle is a day-to-day, on-the-ground battle for every single American to take up. To stand up for what is true about America, to stand up for what is true about our founding, our heritage, our ideas, to stand up for freedom, to speak up in your school districts, in your city councils, to your congressmen, in media, when you see people putting things in media that are false. It takes an army of people standing up. It takes organizations who are standing up. All sorts of organizations are organizing to try to stand up and reclaim and defend the idea of America. You can defend those organizations, defend Heritage Foundation or dozens of other organizations trying to stand up for what's true about America. But you have to recognize the bullying left, the mob bullies of the anti-American left have been working for decades to destroy in our popular culture the love of, the trust in, the belief in the good of America. It's going to take a whole bunch of informed patriots to stand up and fight back and to stand up for the idea of America. I close out every show by telling you at the end of the show, again, why the stories we talked about today matter to you. So we started today's show. We started talking about statues, the American mob rule underway. There is no anti-racism theme to the statue destruction and defacement. Ulysses S. Grant, he actually fought for the North. Francis Scott Key, Junipero Serra, and now statues of Jesus? This is sheer hate America mob nihilism. There's nothing positive going on. Police have been neutered based on fears of police brutality accusations. Congressional leaders are spineless. Corporate America is gutless. And individuals are silenced. If there is no societal willingness to enforce a law, as in you're not allowed to destroy statues, It's not a law anymore. It's not a law. The American people must relearn and refine confidence in their culture and their resolve to defend it. Their current leaders are surrendering to the mob. And in How We Got Here, Education 1619 versus 1776, New York Times 1619 Project is a false and malicious rewrite of American history, resetting the vision and promise of America as all about perpetuating slave trade, anti-free markets, capitalism, evil racist America, and evil racist Americans. New York Times leader considers it an honor. The woman who supports the 1619 Project, she considered it an honor if current turmoil, destruction of property, is called the 1619 riots. The 1619 Project now being taught in U.S. public schools. Teen Vogue magazine elevates Karl Marx as a good guy. No mention of millions of deaths that have followed Marxism everywhere it has been embraced. If this is what American children are taught about their country, why wouldn't they hate it? American patriots know better. They must rise up to reverse this. It is simple, not easy, and it must be done. And whose job is it to save America? The American people will have to save America. This job will not be over even if Trump wins re-election. Voting is not enough. One email to congressman is not enough. Every American patriot must be the new Minuteman in every station of life. Work, school, church, neighborhood. Speak up. Speak truth about America. White supremacism is universally understood and rejected by the overwhelming majority of Americans. An American generational goal, our generation's goal, must be that Marxism in all of its forms is just as universally understood and rejected as white supremacism is by the overwhelming majority of Americans. And that, my friends, is America Can We Talk for today. Thank you so much for tuning in every Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. Central Time, to America Can We Talk, where I always talk truth about America because America matters. And I will talk to you next time.
America Can We Talk? Truth about America.